I know that you want the conversation and the narrative around mental health awareness. How do you feel like you've been creating more of those conversations around mental health in that cultural setting, in the community that you speak to?
So the question is, how am I creating these conversations in spaces?
Yeah, like
culturally?
how have you? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, right, it's normalizing conversations around mental health. Let's start there, right? Like when I say normalize it, mental health simply means the health of your mind. So the health of your thoughts, the quality of your thoughts, how you're able to control and manage your emotions, your thoughts, all of that, right? So I think that for me is something that is a part of everyday conversations that I have with people. So that could be as simple as, really when you think about somebody, sending them that text, giving them that phone call, having that conversation, like, yo, was thinking about you, how you doing? I hope you're surrounded by love. I hope everything is good with you, especially in times like these.
yeah,
But having those immediate kind of conversations about where people are and what people are feeling, and normalizing that, right? Then I think the core of all of the work that I do is about elevating the way people think. And when I say making people smarter, it doesn't mean being smarter than the next person, like calculating it in that way. It's
right,
saying smarter as in helping you just be more aware, more informed, more enlightened. And ultimately, when you're all of those things, you're more empowered, right? And smarter, you can't become smarter and move smarter or do things like that if you don't first become self-aware, right? And become somebody who's very in touch with, and obviously get paid to be yourself is rooted in that too, right? Like
yes,
the
yeah,
idea that the real work is in you. You are the work first. So I think I say that to say, in creating conversations through the work that I do, right? Like through the different interviews that I've done. Like I had the recent one with Tristan Walker, where he's talking about how Black men should be able to taste true financial freedom. Financial freedom being where, you don't owe anybody, you don't feel tied to anything. But he gets into how your perspective has to change in that, right? And like how we see our value and our worth as individuals, like as people, as creators, as entrepreneurs, as people in culture who have tremendous influence, etc. So when we talk about like value and worth, those are all things that are tied directly to mental health and the health of our thoughts and how we perceive ourselves to be, right? So I think through all the work that I'm doing as well, and the recent piece that I put out specifically to have the conversation around having uncomfortable conversations about race and about equality and about, freedom and what these things are really rooted in, and like breaking that down to have those conversations, because you can't grow without discomfort. We talk about it, but it's very, very true. On Twitter, I was recently having a conversation about, you know, our lives are a reflection of the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves.
mm, mm.
And at the same time, we have to develop a higher tolerance for pain. That's something we don't talk about
Speak to
enough.
that. Speak to that.
Yeah, we have. So I'll speak from personal experience, right? Like I've had to endure a lot of pain throughout my life, right? Painful being like, painful experiences, painful, you see things, you feel things, you go through things, etc. You see other people go through things. It's a lot of trauma when we talk about trauma, right? So you have that on one side as like a pain you have to navigate, because when you see your family struggling, or you see your reality not reflecting what you feel like it should be, or the world that you feel, and when you don't have much, when you lose people, when people are dying, when people are being incarcerated, when what I'm saying, being Black and really understanding like the inner workings of that, you know what I'm saying? So there's so many things on a deeper level, like the trust issues we deal with, the sabotage, self-sabotage, the the sense of, there's so many things on a deep personal level that are painful, right? Like it's painful to feel these things. What are you gonna say? Sorry. Hold on, now you cut out again. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Good.
Okay. I want to dig in a little deeper. What?
And I definitely want to explain that in terms of
Oh,
the
yes,
tolerance
yes,
for pain.
yes.
And I'll just sum it up real quick, right?
Yes.
So pain is necessary to grow. You cannot grow without pain. That's why they're called growing pains. Literally, they're growing pains because you have to be, in many cases, broken down, stripped down, like pulled back, like stretched, all these different things, challenged to the next degree to break into that next level, because you do have to evolve into a new version of yourself as you elevate into new versions of your life, like new iterations of your life, because you're the same person, but you're having new experiences and new challenges and new things arising. So you consistently have to break through that threshold. It's the same as a muscle. When we talk about mental health, it's like physical health. You have to train that muscle, but the muscle has to be torn. Like the muscle has to be put through a lot of pain. Now, this isn't to say we are supposed to suffer. Like that's a different kind of thing. Like you're not supposed to, you're not supposed to make your life hard, right? Like that's not what growth is about. It's actually the opposite. But it's just saying that the higher you can develop that tolerance for pain, which ultimately happens through the more you face your pain at every level of your growth. Like when you embrace it and you confront it and you process it and you become aware of it and then you confront it, like you really say, how do I grow out of this? How do I become better out of this? Like, what do I learn from this? Then you reach that new level, boom, 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 but it builds your tolerance.
Yes.
So now when something that would have hurt you before, it could be what somebody would say about you. It could be how your parents feel about you. It could be hitting a roadblock at work. It could be the girl you're with, like her lying to you or this happening or not knowing this. And it's like, those are things that maybe on a smaller stage of your maturity and like your pain threshold, that's something that would have threw you off. Like that's something that could have threw off your whole center of gravity. But when you experience that and you embrace it and you don't run from it, like you don't try to go numb it, you don't try to go do any of that, like you face it, then now when you experience that, you're smarter, you know how to move better, you're more discerning, but ultimately it doesn't affect you. And that's the way you build a tolerance and that's why you can't run from pain. You know what I'm saying? Because like the higher you have that tolerance, the more you're able to endure. The more you're able to endure, the further and the higher you're able to elevate, because the air gets thinner at the top. Like everything you feel is only going to be intensified as you continue to grow. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that's what I mean by a threshold for people. Yeah.
So what are some of the emotional I guess traumas and pains from your past that you feel you have to unlearn in order to go through the process of growing pains? What did you have to unlearn personally?
Oh my God, there's so many. I mean, there's so many, man. Like, I would say I had to get over self-sabotage. That was a big thing for me. The feeling of, you have aspirations, you have desires and things like that. But you don't truly in your heart accept that you deserve them or really feel like you deserve them. And you have to go through a period of asking yourself, why do you sabotage things? Like, where does that come from? Why do you feel like the things that you think you should have, you don't deserve, right? Like, that's a real conversation that you have with yourself about self-worth?
True.
And why do you find, because when you're in those situations, you create conflict, you create chaos, you create like scenarios and situations that don't exist. Why does that happen? Because for me, coming up, I didn't see people who were happy. I didn't see people who, you know, were going through. And when I say I didn't see people that are happy, what I mean is like in my household, like to backtrack it to like, and I've shared this before, but I was born in Seattle, Washington. My mom was about 17. She had my brother. My brother is 4 years older than me. When she had my brother, then she had me. My brother was born in Alaska. I was born in Seattle. But my mom was big on drugs, you know, big on a lot of things that, you know, were not healthy for her. And my grandmother took us. So I was really sick, like as a child and all of that. And my grandmother took us in. We lived with her. She was older. She eventually became like bedridden and all of that. And my dad, I had never met my father. To this day, I've never had a physical like experience with him. But you know, I was told he was dead because as a kid, because he received a life sentence, like a very long prison sentence. And I didn't grow up with him. So there was that part of it, right, where you don't have your mom and your dad. And I didn't even spend time with my mom. Like I didn't even like formally really meet her until I was 11 years old. You know what I'm saying? So I was thinking that my grandmother was my mom. You know, I used to call her mom and all of that. So I experienced like those types of things. And then from there, my mom gets incarcerated for a very long period of time while I'm still young. And we were on the street. We did that. We didn't have a lot of family. So, you know, like there was just so many things in that. So that put me in a space where I had to overcome the self-sabotage and the sense of knowing what you're worth and being able to overcome that. Obviously, you deal with trust and like you deal with the trust issue that so many of us deal with, because the people who you're supposed to be able to trust without question have all violated that trust. Like you've never had that trust returned. So then, you know, you have to deal with that. You have to deal with the sense of abandonment. That's what a lot of people who've been in those situations deal with. Yeah. You have to deal with that. You have to deal with the traumas of like the pressure you feel of like having to carry this, like you have to be the one to fix this and change this and make you know what I'm saying? So like, and then you overcome that. I just feel like there was a lot of them, man, like a lot of trauma from my childhood that I had to really do a lot of work and go through a lot of steps and like have a lot of conversations with myself to get to a place where I could really understand it and get the weight off of me in a lot of those ways. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, and
a lot of different trauma.
And it's so crazy because I feel like, you know, when we unlearn, you know, and get past what that growing pain feeling looks like, it's kind of like we grow lighter.
You do. Well, because the thing about it is like, for me, I didn't realize how not normal my life and my thought process and my experience was until I went to college, because all I saw when I was even to the point of, you know, you lose a lot of friends. So you think your friends dying is normal. You see a lot of people on drugs or go to jail. So you think that that's normal. Like that's how life is. Like, you know, you are used to not having much, not eating much, not doing much. So you think in your mind, you're kind of like, well, that's the only life I see. And that's why I understand why people get caught up in that and can never really break out of that, because you may only be in your bubble in that world and you feel like that's what life is. Like, this is what life is. Like, this struggle, this reality, that's all I see other people going through too, is like, that's what this life is. And when I got to college, I went to Occidental College in LA. So I moved to Vegas from Seattle to be with my mom, and then my mom gets incarcerated, and my stepdad goes to jail, and all this stuff happens. And then we were on the street for that period of time, me and my brother. Then my brother goes to the military. I emancipated myself, got adopted, 14, get adopted, join this family, try to take my sister with me, and then went through that struggle of dealing with that. But I said, yo, my window is right here to create the life that I want for myself and be the person that I wanted to be. It was like a narrow kind of window. And when I went to college, it was the first time where I was like, oh, women aren't pregnant. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, people don't know anybody that's been in jail. Like, all these people have both their parents and their grandparents. Like, it really was one of those things of like, yo, like, this is actually a normal way of life for people. You know, the trauma of allowing yourself to be happy, right? Allowing yourself to be proud of yourself, giving yourself permission to give yourself grace. You know what I'm saying? Like, to give yourself the room to make a mistake, to fail, to do these things. Like, these are real things. Like, and so it got to a point where I had to realize that the reality that I lived in, it was very real. The reality of that was a small, like, scope of what life was, what the world was, and what it could be. And that's a metaphor for our minds, right? Like, you'll become stuck in this bubble because that's all you can see. Like, that's all you know. That's all you know. You can only aspire to what you're exposed to. And when you are in that space, most people never get out of it. They never get out of those spaces. So yeah, I think just taking it there, it's all those things have a trauma attached to them, and you have to realize that, like, all the things that you may have thought were normal are just a reflection of an experience and a perspective that you've had. But there's so many other experiences and perspectives that exist. You know what I'm saying? And, like, you have to open yourself up to experiencing those things.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was loaded in the most knowledgeable way. Like, I salute your bravery to unlearn, what you've gone through, right? All the trauma. When you could have suppressed it and stayed unhappy, right? Because you normalize being unhappy so much that it became this traumatizing thing.
But you don't know what happiness is until you've actually experienced it. That's the other thing we don't like really know. And that's why we chase things like money and jobs and all these things, because the feeling that you get when you think about it, that feeling is not happiness. That feeling is excitement. That feeling is like the high of imagining what that thing is, right? Like the pleasure of that. That itself is not the happiness. So that's when people get that and it's not what that is, then they go the opposite way. Then you're depressed. Now you're like, yo, I gave my whole life to get this, and now I got it, and I don't have any of that. Like, I don't have that feeling in my heart. like in my mind and in my heart. And that's the thing. Like most people don't even experience that, bro. Like,
man, and that's so true, man. I mean,
and that's so true, man. I mean,
I wanted to bring you on here because I know that you can speak to not only the cultural side of perspective, cultural perspective, but you can speak to your own perspective, what you've gone through. And I'm so happy and join us because your story is what is going to shift the narrative. You know,
it's like water. It's like they say, right? Like you're still waters run deep. Still is calm.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like the Om here, like the chakra is the top. It's like the symmetry down the middle. Like you want to get to a point where you have your own center of gravity. Like you've really become, the way I say it is like polished by the pressure of your life. When they talk about diamonds, pressure makes diamonds, is that it's easier said than done, but it just comes down to facing things, like confronting things. Like that's the pressure that eventually creates a smoothness, a stillness, like a calmness, a peace of mind. Like people ask me all the time, like, yo, how are you so calm? And it's not because I just like woke up one day and was super zen. No, it's because I've had the days and the hours and the tears and the moments already, you know what I'm saying? And faced them and experienced those low points or those breaking points. I've experienced them, but I didn't run from them.
Yeah.
So because I didn't run from them and I actually went through the fire, then what happens when you come out on the other side? Now you are lighter. Like now you are more fluid, you know what I'm saying? And your life becomes a reflection of that fluidity that you've created, you know what I'm saying, for yourself.
Man, I hope you all look. I hope you all. A lot of gems drop. In the short time that I was able to have. And I appreciate it, brother. I really do. And I'm so honored to know who you are. I've gotten to meet you and grow with you. And every time we have our conversation, I get lighter. You know what I mean? So I appreciate it, man.
And I'll share a couple of things before we jump off too, because me and Marcus will have conversations at a spot in New York. If anybody's in New York, Kava Sutra on 10th Street and First Avenue. But that's something like Kava, Kratom, like a lot of getting into smoothies and shots every day to be able to get your health right, like you build your immune system up, get yourself together, allows you to have more of a natural, cool, like flow throughout your day. But things like that, like picking up on healthier eating habits, going out on walks, taking a lot of walks. I love walking. Like that's something that helps you feel connected, get your mind right, discover new things. Run, like running is great for your focus, for your mental. Like get the Nike Run Club app, get you a fire playlist, get your shoes, hit the pavement. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Conversations, pick up the phone and call people. You know what I'm saying? Like if you have one or two confidants, whoever, like don't be afraid when you think about somebody, call them, reach out to them, shoot them that text. Like I've done that with you, Marcus. Like if I think about it, I'm like, yo, I hope you're well. Like, boom, you got to transfer that energy because that's a part of it too. Like somebody may be lacking that energy and you're giving it to them without you even knowing that you blessing them like that. You know what I'm saying? So I think making it a lifestyle piece is the point I'm making. Read, like the music you listen to, the vibe you do, like how you set your house up, keeping your house clean, keeping your situation together, like simple things that you can do on top of training your mind and just start to make it a lifestyle, like a natural lifestyle of that calmness and that sense of peace and that stillness in your life.
Well, thank you, man. That was resources. Those were a lot of resources that he provided that we should definitely take with us, man. And we're going to take all your gems with us and give you your flowers now. Thank you.
Nah, I appreciate that. Love to everybody.
Much love.
And appreciate you again, man. This is a dope platform. Look forward to doing more.
Yes, many more.
Yes, many more.
All right, sir.